This is a very critical point for us in the history of African agriculture. The fact that we are talking about and discussing about policy, because for me, if there was one thing that we really had to fix, one thing that was really broken, it's our policy systems, and mostly because, not because we don't want to do something about it, but because actually a lot of times we don't know what to do. A lot of us that are charged with what to do don't know what to do. And I will tell you my own experience. When I started working in the Ministry of Agriculture as Permanent Secretary, I did get a lot of support from IFPRI, from RISACS, but I remember two specific meetings. And anybody here who works in government is going to recognize that. I remember Godfrey Bahigo walking in my office and telling me about RISACS. And I'm like, why are you wasting my time? In my head, I was like, I can't wait for this guy to get out of here. That's what I was thinking. I'm serious. I was like, okay, he's been sent, he's talking to me about Usman, I respect Usman, so I can't wait. So let me just be patient, he's going to go. I did not hear a single thing he said. I'm being honest. I'm just being honest. I was waiting for him to get out so that, it sounded so complicated, number one. He was talking about things that sounded so complicated, number one. Number two, I just had so much on my plate. And I was like, okay, I will listen to you because Usman has helped you make this appointment, but I really can't wait for you to get out. So he goes. Then Usman is working behind the scenes. Then we're about to launch CAADP, and Usman comes up with these presentations. And I'm supposed to make one of those presentations to an audience like this big, except I didn't read it, except I didn't understand what it was about. And I tried to present it in my mind. I wasn't fully convinced that I was doing the right thing. I wasn't fully convinced that I needed to be making this presentation. So I did it again for the show of it. I am 100% sure that I did a poor job because I remember it very well. Usually I do a very good job with PowerPoint presentations. But this particular one, because I hadn't even read it, I was coming from one meeting running to another, and I had to make this presentation. The reason I'm telling you these things is because a lot of us in public offices do exactly that. Most of the times, we really don't give a lot of value to these things until it's a bit getting late. Did it mean that I didn't have the value I could have had for these meetings? I just had 101 demands on my plate. So a lot of people in these offices don't have a lot of help. So they actually are trying to juggle 101 things, and they end up spread too thin. So even as you're trying to support them, being able to understand where they're coming from is very critical. Then fast forward, I started thinking, but I really need to move this sector. What do I need to do? Then I remember there was someone called Godfrey who had come to me, talking to me about policies, about evidence, about whatever. So I said, okay, I tried to look for him. Then I found them, and they did for me a study. And that for me was the transformation that we needed, because it provided all the evidence we needed to do the type of work we needed. And once I had that study, we started designing programs. I got a few people, experts from different places around the world, and got a few experts and told them, I need you to translate this into something that can be financed. And once I had that, I confidently walked into my ministers of financial offices. This is the program we need to finance. These are the programs we need to finance. So why am I saying all these things? To me, is we've done a lot of things. Okay, if I just backtrack a little bit, for us in Rwanda, that became the backbone of our CAADP process. That became the backbone of having a serious conversation with the Ministry of Agriculture and Finance, to the extent that I believe, or I don't believe, that there's one single Minister of Finance out there that would reject a good plan from a Ministry of Agriculture. You just show them what is in it for them. These guys want one thing. They want GDP growth, they want GDP growth, they want GDP growth. If you show them that what you're talking about is going to result into GDP growth, they'll give you the money. But we have to be able to make those connections. We have to be able to show them what is in it for them. He has 101 things to spend money on. Why is yours important? Right? So sometimes we think, oh yeah, I'm the Minister of Agriculture. 80% of our people are in agriculture. He should give me the money. But why? I walked into the Ministry of Agriculture when we were getting like something like 10 million. It was changed to the Minister of Finance, and we were only spending 65% of it. We were not even finishing it at the time I walked into the ministry. So why should he care about the next program that the Ministry of Agriculture is talking about, right? So even though he was just giving us change at the end of the day, so it's like they keep you alive. Yeah, that ministry is there. Yeah, it's there. It's important. But we have to work very hard to make the case for the Ministry of Agriculture, because these guys actually care when we give them a good case. So again, the reason I'm saying this is very simple. We have this learning event here. We have the opportunity that all these institutions, RISACS, IFPRI, AGRA, USAID, lots of institutions in this room, FARA, lots of institutions, right? All of them trying to do one thing, trying to support governments to do the right thing, to have the capacities they miss to have. So I think what I would have done differently back then, if I knew, was really to go to these institutions and actually demand that I be given the support that I need, right? So these institutions are here, and all they are looking to do is to give you support. Back then, I really didn't understand. When I figured out that IFPRI could give me the support, I did, right? But I didn't know where to go. Right now, there's so much investment in ensuring that the institutions that can provide that support, that we need to go to and be able to get that support and move off the ground. So to the extent that for me, when I came into AGRA and found that AGRA is a beautiful institution in terms of designing and developing technologies, the green revolution. What do farmers need? The varieties, the seeds, the fertilizers. To me, it was like, okay, this is good. But how do you get to the farmers that need them? All the farmers, not those few farmers, all the farmers that need them. And I was like, unless we work with others, unless we work with governments that can actually mobilize this money from the World Bank, that can mobilize this money from IFAD, from African Development Bank, from institutions that are there to provide the money, that can put in place policies that will support their own private sector to ensure that they can sustain this, we can't do much. And so part of what we are doing now is to look at how we provide that support that countries need. The countries, again, going back to the position I was sitting in, countries have one problem. Because we have these huge weaknesses that are not even really their capacity, we just don't have capacities. I was an entomologist, I was not an economist. We have to have the spending power in our pockets. We have to have the capacity. Has any of you been in these trains in the Western world, where you go into a train and you seem to think everybody lives on the train? And I ask myself, if it was my village, how many of us would be on this train? It would probably be just me, right? So if you have people that can't spend the next bit of $10 to send their kids to school, how are you going to make the industrial revolution? It gets the fourth industrial revolution. It's about technology, it's about brain power, which is being squashed before it even emerges because of malnutrition. So this policy learning event is great. It's an opportunity for us to learn from each other. I can spend days talking to you about how in Rwanda, I was listening to Sherry and I was enjoying your presentation, and I'm like, okay, so you can write it, but I could tell you in my sleep each of those steps, except I didn't know what the next step was going to be. I just knew I had to do something. I feel like if we all want to do something, there's good reason in this room to do something. There's good knowledge in this room to learn from each other. And that's what I love about the Marabu Declaration and the whole biannual review process that is coming up. It's an opportunity for us to learn from each other. There's an opportunity for us not to say we don't know what we need to do, because there are a few countries that are figuring it out, and there are many institutions that are offering help. So we can't pretend we don't know what needs to be done. We can't continue living in this kind of situation. And reaching out, honestly, I don't feel bad to reach out. You should not feel bad to reach out, because you're not supposed to know everything. You're only supposed to know what you know. You're not supposed to know what you don't know. So please seek support, seek help, and learn from each other. There are countries that are already making it. I hope that the biannual review process actually will help package the information that is emerging out of these countries, the way that will actually allow countries, in a way that will actually allow countries to learn from each other, to see where progress is being made, and to ask the question, so what did you do differently? What would we do differently? And my last point here is, I really hope I'm wrong. I hope that the reason that we are not moving on policy is also not underpinned in some deliberate effort, conscious or subconscious, not to move on policy because it's comfortable to live in certain places. I'm hoping that there are people here in governments, right? That this is CAADP Partners Platform. I'm hoping that you all understand that opening up this space is more important than managing a lot of people in ignorance. I hope you understand the value of that. I hope you understand that opening up trade is more important than being the only shop in town. So I really hope that you guys understand that policy is the bottom line, and we need to put in all our efforts, and we can do something about it. It's just about hard work, getting help, and getting support and learning from each other. So this learning event is a huge first step. I guess it's not a first step because I've also been in these meetings, but it's a very huge step in the right direction, and I can't wait to see what the biannual review is coming up with in January, because for me that's really like going after what our leaders recognized, recognizing that they need to learn from each other, that they need to report progress against the investments they are making to make Africa a better continent, to remove poverty from our communities. Thank you very much.